Leadership, that one word, that one force, determines whether a nation rises or falls. And when we look at the story of India and Pakistan, two countries born in the same moment of history, carved from the same land, shaped by the same colonial trauma, we see two paths taken. India chose a hard, disciplined, democratic road. Pakistan chose shortcuts, confusion, and instability. This isn't about who's better, it's about who made better choices, and who paid the price for not doing so. India, from day one, committed itself to the framework of civilian rule and long-term democratic governance. Through assassinations, wars, corruption scandals, and economic crises, India stayed the course. Leaders came and went, some flawed, some brilliant, but the idea of India endured. Parliament still met. Elections still happened. The people still spoke. They kept working the muscle of democracy, even when it hurt. Now look at Pakistan. In the same timeline, it saw 3 military coups, long years of dictatorship, and democratic institutions treated like temporary decorations. Civilian leaders were overthrown, exiled, or silenced, and in that power vacuum, chaos thrived. India had the benefit of a stable constitution, one that was respected even when challenged. Judges ruled, and their rulings carried weight. Pakistan's constitution. Amended, suspended, rewritten sometimes overnight, and every time that happened, the public lost more faith in the system. You can't build a nation on fear, you build it on trust. And trust comes when leadership is accountable, when it doesn't answer to generals behind the curtain or foreign donors in the shadows. Now let's talk consistency. India didn't just declare policies, it stuck with them. Liberalization in the 1990s, sector growth in the 2000s, infrastructure investments in the 2010s. These weren't random ideas tossed around in speeches. They were part of a larger vision. Successive governments, even when they disagreed politically, carried the economic mission forward. They didn't tear it all down every 5 years for political gain. That consistency, that leadership discipline, is what allowed India to evolve from a struggling post-colonial economy to the 5th largest in the world. Pakistan, on the other hand, treated leadership like a revolving door. One leader brings reform, the next reverses it. One prime minister talks peace, the next one talks war. There's no vision, no foundation. You can't plant seeds in a garden where the soil is constantly being dug up and replaced. Every time Pakistan starts to move forward, internal instability pulls it 2 steps back. The result: economic decline, international isolation, and public disillusionment. Not because the people lack talent or heart, but because they lack consistent, courageous leadership. Leadership also means facing your own house before pointing at someone else's. India, for all its imperfections, turned inward. It worked on infrastructure, education, health care, and digital empowerment. It didn't blame neighbors or past empires for today's problems. Pakistan, too often, played the blame game. India, the West, conspiracies, always something outside. That's not leadership, that's avoidance, and avoidance never built anything great. Real leadership doesn't seek applause, it seeks progress. It takes the hit, it owns the failure, and it stays on mission. And when we compare these two nations today, one attracting global investment, launching satellites, leading summits, and the other struggling to secure food imports or pay its bills, we see the result of years, decades, of different leadership choices. Because nations don't fall in a day, and they don't rise by luck. They rise and fall on the shoulders of those who dare to lead, and those who fail to. Education and innovation, these are not luxuries. They are survival tools in the modern world. They are the engines that power progress, the foundation upon which every great nation stands. When a country chooses to invest in the minds of its people, it invests in its future. India understood this early. Pakistan, tragically, did not. And that decision, that difference in focus, is one of the core reasons why India is rising while Pakistan is falling. Decades ago, India laid the groundwork for a knowledge-based economy. It built institutions like the IIT, the IIM, and IIMS centers of excellence that not only educated but also inspired. The result: a generation of engineers, scientists, doctors, entrepreneurs, thinkers, and doers who went on to change the face of India and contribute globally. Indian tech talent is in Silicon Valley, in global boardrooms, running Fortune 500 companies. That didn't happen by chance. That was strategy. That was vision. That was leadership saying, "We will build the future by building our people." Meanwhile, Pakistan's education system has remained fragmented, underfunded, and politicized. Basic literacy remains a struggle. Textbooks are often outdated, sometimes weaponized by ideology, and rarely geared toward critical thinking or innovation. Instead of building a nation of problem solvers, Pakistan found itself nurturing division, mistrust, and occasionally even radicalism in classrooms that should have been breeding grounds for creativity and curiosity. Where India built laboratories, Pakistan allowed loudspeakers. Where India built innovation hubs, Pakistan fought over curriculum and identity. Let's not ignore the digital revolution. India saw the coming wave and prepared for it. With initiatives like Digital India, the country rolled out high-speed internet, encouraged tech startups, and created a digital payment ecosystem that now serves over 1 billion people. From Bangalore to Hyderabad, India became known as a global tech hub. In contrast, Pakistan's digital infrastructure lags behind. Startups struggle with funding, bureaucracy, and lack of technical talent. Innovation is stifled, not by a lack of intelligence. Pakistanis are brilliant, but by a system that fails to nurture or support them. Innovation doesn't just mean technology. It also means adapting to new ways of doing things, modernizing agriculture, upgrading healthcare, improving governance. India embraced innovation in all sectors. It used Aadhaar to streamline welfare. It used satellites to monitor crops. And it used telemedicine to reach rural patients. Pakistan, weighed down by internal instability and constant crisis management, didn't have the room to think creatively, let alone execute on big ideas. But here's the deeper truth. Innovation is born from a culture that celebrates learning, that encourages debate, that respects expertise. India, despite all its political and social tensions, created a space for that culture to survive. Pakistan, instead of encouraging open thought, often feared it censoring, suppressing, or dismissing the very voices that could have moved it forward. When a nation chooses to build narratives instead of building knowledge, it pays for that choice. And when it comes time to compete economically, technologically, globally, it falls behind. That is what we're seeing now. India is forging partnerships with Google, Microsoft, Tesla. Pakistan is negotiating emergency loans and battling brain drain. One is exporting software and innovation. The other is exporting talent, not by design, but by desperation. The message here is clear. Education and innovation are not optional for national growth, they are essential. India knew this. Pakistan still hasn't learned, and until that lesson is taken seriously, the gap between these two neighbors will only grow wider. Democracy isn't easy. It's messy, it's slow, and it's often frustrating. But when exercised with discipline and conviction, it becomes the strongest pillar a nation can stand on. That's the path India chose. Through decades of turbulence, political rivalry, social unrest, and economic challenges, India kept faith, in its democratic process. It wasn't perfect, it still isn't, but it remained intact. Pakistan, on the other hand, weakened that very muscle of democracy. It didn't just neglect it. At times, it actively worked against it. And that difference, that contrast in how the two nations treated their democratic foundations, is a key reason why one is rising while the other is falling. India understood early that the institutions of democracy must be allowed to breathe and function. Whether it was a peaceful transition of power, a Supreme Court ruling against a powerful government, or a fiery opposition holding the ruling party accountable, these were signs of a living democracy. The people voted, and their vote mattered. Leaders came to power through ballots, not through backroom deals or backdoor pressure. This gave India stability. It gave the global community confidence that India could be a reliable partner, a predictable player on the world stage. Now contrast that with Pakistan. The democratic process there has been broken, rebuilt, and broken again. Military coups interrupted civilian rule more than once. Elected leaders were jailed, exiled, or worse. Parliaments were dissolved at will. Judges were threatened or removed. And when democracy did exist, it was often undermined by invisible hands, political engineering, selective justice, media blackout. In such a climate, how can a nation grow? How can trust take root when the people are never sure who truly holds the power? The press in India, though increasingly under pressure in recent years, has historically been vibrant, bold, and free. Investigative journalism exposed scams, challenged power, and spoke uncomfortable truths. The media helped shape a more informed electorate. In Pakistan, journalists have been silenced, abducted, or intimidated into self-censorship. Critical voices were labeled enemies, and truth became dangerous. A democracy without a free press is like a car without an engine. It might look like it works, but it's not going anywhere. One of democracy's greatest strengths is its ability to course correct. India, through its elections, allowed the public to punish poor performance and reward good governance. Parties lost and returned, leaders fell and rose again, but the system kept working. It kept resetting itself without violence or collapse. Pakistan, too often, relied on force or manipulation to change course. Instead of letting the people decide, power was reshuffled in boardrooms or barracks. That doesn't create growth, it creates fear and fatigue. India's democratic continuity also fostered long-term planning. Governments could build on the work of their predecessors without dismantling everything out of political ego. Economic reforms initiated in the 90s were expanded in the 2000s and further scaled in the next decade. That continuity gave investors confidence. It gave the youth hope. In Pakistan, every new government acted like the country started with them. Plans were scrapped, policies reversed, progress reset. You can't move forward when every few years you're back at square one. It's easy to chant slogans about freedom, but real democracy is about hard work, about building institutions that protect people's rights, not rulers' power. India has kept that commitment, even through its darkest chapters. Pakistan again and again sacrificed democratic principles in the name of security, religion, or power consolidation, and each time it did, it slipped further from the path of progress. A nation's strength isn't just in its weapons or its economy. It's in its people's voice, and whether that voice is heard, respected, and empowered. India listened. Pakistan silenced. That's the difference. Perception isn't just a matter of opinion. It's a form of power. The way a nation is seen by the world shapes its future. It affects trade, diplomacy, investment, and influence. India, over the years, has worked relentlessly to shape a global identity rooted in growth, opportunity, and responsibility. It has earned the respect of the world, not just by talking, but by showing up, performing, and leading. Pakistan, on the other hand, has struggled to control its global image. Where India is seen as a rising force, Pakistan is often seen as a fragile state caught in its own crises. And in today's interconnected world, perception often determines reality. India has crafted its image as a hub of innovation, culture, and partnership. Whether it's the tech parks of Bangalore, the ISRO satellite launches, the yoga diplomacy, or its seat at the G20 summit, India has projected competence, ambition, and stability. It became a country the world wanted to do business with. Global CEO began to visit India, not just for its market size, but for its talent and potential. Nations partnered with India not out of charity, but out of strategic interest. India built alliances in the West, strengthened ties in the East, and spoke in a voice that was confident, calculated, and calm. Pakistan, however, too often found itself in headlines for all the wrong reasons: political unrest, terrorism concerns, economic bailouts, and internal instability. Instead of becoming a symbol of opportunity, it became a cautionary tale. The world doesn't invest where it sees uncertainty. It doesn't build bridges with governments it doesn't trust to last. Pakistan's narrative became reactive, constantly denying, defending, or deflecting. And while the world watched, confidence in Pakistan's ability to deliver kept slipping. Let's talk numbers. India has become one of the world's largest recipients of foreign direct investment. Global companies are moving operations to India, attracted by its skilled workforce, stable institutions, and growing middle class. It signed trade deals, hosted summits, and negotiated from a position of strength. Pakistan, meanwhile, saw foreign investment decline. Its IMF dependence grew. Loans replaced partnerships, and instead of being seen as a co-creator of global progress, it became a risk most wanted to avoid. There's also the matter of soft power. India didn't just export software. It exported stories, culture, and credibility. From Bollywood to spiritual tourism, from Indian cuisine to its global diaspora, India presented itself as a diverse, democratic, and dynamic society. Pakistan, rich in culture and talent, could have done the same, but internal instability and extremist narratives limited that soft power reach. You can't promote tourism when your streets are burning. You can't export art when your artists are censored. And you can't lead globally if you're still fighting for survival at home. India also understood how to manage crises without collapsing its image. Whether it was border tensions, internal protests, or pandemics, it projected calm and control. Pakistan's crises, by contrast, often spilled into chaos. Live on television, the world doesn't just remember what happened. It remembers how a country reacts. India reacted with discipline. Pakistan, too often, with disorder. Reputation is a currency in the modern world. It opens doors or it closes them. It creates leverage or it leaves you begging. India spent years building that currency. Pakistan spent years losing it. And now, when both nations stand on the global stage, one is greeted with applause and deals, while the other is met with concern and conditions. Respect is not demanded, it's earned, and once you lose it, it's a long, hard climb to get it back. An economy isn't just about numbers on a chart, it's about discipline, vision, and the courage to stay the course when it's hard. India understood that. It treated its economy like a long-term mission, not a short-term rescue job. It didn't just chase growth, it laid the bricks for it, slowly, strategically, and with clarity. Pakistan, by contrast, has too often treated its economy like a fire to put out, not a house to build. It moved from one crisis to the next, hoping for a bailout instead of building a base. And that's a big reason why today India is surging ahead while Pakistan is falling behind. Look at what India chose to prioritize: infrastructure, digital access, manufacturing, and financial inclusion. Decades ago, when liberalization began in the 1990s, India opened its markets, welcomed foreign investment, and slowly began unshackling its private sector. It wasn't always smooth. There were stumbles, resistance, and criticism. But the leadership didn't flinch. It knew that long-term reform required short-term pain. India restructured taxes, improved logistics, and invested in highways, railways, and power grids. Today, those investments are paying off. Goods move faster, business is easier, and new industries like electronics manufacturing and green energy are booming. In Pakistan, reforms were often cosmetic or delayed until there was no choice left. Instead of restructuring the tax base, it borrowed. Instead of cutting wasteful subsidies, it kicked the can down the road. And instead of empowering local industries, it remained dependent on imports and aid. Economic discipline was sacrificed at the altar of political survival. Every time a tough decision was needed, politics got in the way, and the result, a fragile economy, constantly on edge, struggling with inflation, devaluation, and public despair. India also embraced digital innovation to fuel its economy. With the rollout of UPI, Unified Payments Interface, India created one of the world's most advanced digital payment systems. It connected rural and urban economies, brought millions into the formal banking system, and made transactions easier, faster, and safer. Pakistan, though showing some signs of digital progress, has lagged far behind. Financial access remains limited, and cash continues to dominate an informal economy riddled with inefficiency and leakages. Let's talk about foreign investment. India has become a magnet for global capital. Apple, Google, Tesla, they're not just selling in India. They're setting up shop there. Because India offers not just a market, but a stable and scalable business environment. Pakistan, meanwhile, has struggled to attract long-term investors. And why would they come when policies flip with every change in government? The energy supply is unreliable, and political uncertainty clouds every major decision. But here's the thing: economies don't fail just because they lack money. They fail when they lack confidence. Confidence from the people, confidence from investors, confidence from the world. India, through steady reforms, built that confidence. Pakistan, through economic mismanagement and political instability, lost it. And once confidence is gone, recovery isn't just hard, it becomes a mountain. We must also understand that economic strength brings leverage. Today, India negotiates from a position of power at the World Trade Organization, at climate summits, and in bilateral deals. Pakistan negotiates from the edge, asking for concessions, pleading for debt relief. That's the brutal difference between a nation that runs its economy with discipline and one that runs it on hope and handouts. A rising nation doesn't wait for rescue. It builds, brick by brick, policy by policy, sacrifice by sacrifice. India did that. Pakistan didn't. And now the results speak for themselves. Security is more than tanks, missiles, and uniforms. Real security, the kind that sustains a nation, is rooted in stability, unity, and trust between the state and its people. India, through all its challenges, has managed to maintain that internal balance. It faced threats, yes. It faced insurgencies, border conflicts, terrorism, and communal tensions. But it responded with institutions, with law, with democracy. It kept the military under civilian control. It gave space to dialogue, to dissent, to course correction. That's how India secured itself not just from enemies outside, but from implosions within. Pakistan, tragically, did the opposite. It turned its own soil into a battlefield. It blurred the line between security and politics, between protection and paranoia, and that, more than anything, has cost it dearly. In India, the armed forces are respected, but they do not rule. They serve under the Constitution. Civilian supremacy has been a red line that, despite pressure, has largely held firm. That matters, because when the military stays in the barracks and lets institutions lead, democracy breathes. Investment flows. The judiciary remains functional. Policy stays consistent. In Pakistan, the military has not just played a role, it has played the lead. Directly or indirectly, it has shaped foreign policy, economic direction, and even elections. And in doing so, it has weakened the very institutions that build national strength. India built up its internal intelligence, police reform, and counter-terror infrastructure, slowly but steadily. It didn't rely on proxies or play double games. It took hits Mumbai, Pulwama, Parliament, but it responded with accountability and strategy. It worked with international partners, shared intelligence, and built systems to protect its people. Pakistan, by contrast, became known for harboring elements that it claimed to be fighting. Extremist networks were allowed to grow, sometimes used as leverage, and then blamed when they turned inward. You cannot light a fire in your neighbor's house and expect your own walls to stay safe. Look at global partnerships. India is trusted. It signs defense agreements with the U.S., France, Israel, Australia. Its voice carries weight in global security discussions. It has joined key forums like the Quad, BRICS, and G20, not just because of its economy, but because it's seen as a responsible power. Pakistan, meanwhile, is often seen as a security liability. Countries don't ask what Pakistan can offer, they ask what they need to protect themselves from. That's not power. That's a warning sign. Terrorism, sectarianism, and ethnic violence have ripped through Pakistan's own cities: Quetta, Lahore, Karachi, Peshawar. These aren't just unfortunate incidents. They're symptoms of a deeper breakdown of a state that outsourced control to militant ideologies and then lost the ability to call them back. India, with its own diversity, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Dalits, tribals, has somehow held the line. It has seen division, yes, but not disintegration. That's a sign of internal security when a nation bends, but doesn't break. And here's something deeper. People feel secure when they believe tomorrow will be better than today. In India, for the most part, there is that belief. A young girl in a village knows she can grow up to work in tech, travel the world, or even enter politics. In Pakistan, that hope is flickering. Not because the people lack ambition, they don't, but because the system keeps collapsing around them. Security isn't just about protecting borders, it's about protecting dreams. A nation can't rise if it's at war with itself. It can't grow if it's afraid of its own shadow. India, for all its problems, understood that. Pakistan, sadly, still hasn't, and until it does, it will remain stuck fighting battles that only hold it back.